Hey everybody, Mike McWilliams, Upstairs to the Right Music. On today's show, we're going to take a look at a Trace Elliot 715 bass combo amp. My neighbor down the street came up to me and said, "Hey Mike, do you know much about amps?" And he's not aware of, the extent of my profession. So, but he knows that I play, and so I said, "Yeah, sure." He says, "Well, I've got Trace Elliot 715 combo amp, bass amp that I bought about 10 years ago or so." He says, I want to get back into playing again, but when I plug into it, I'm getting a hum out of it, and I'm wondering what's wrong with it. Could you take a look at it? And to be frank with you, I'm not familiar with Trace Elliot amps. I've heard of them. I mean, I know they were pretty big. It's a British company that I know was pretty big back in the 80s, but in terms of bass amps are concerned, amplifiers. But I had never ever had any experience with one of them, so I said, "Sure." So he said, "Okay." So he brings me into his house, and I look at this thing, and it's about yay big. It's huge, 1x15 combo amp, and just as heavy as a stone, man. And like Mount Rushmore type heavy, And so I said to him, "Okay, all right, man, I'm not going to look at it here in your pad. Let me wheel it over to my place where I've got my tools. I can open it up, take a look at it, and see if there's anything wrong, if I do indeed find anything wrong." So I had to get my trolley to go and, rolling down here. I'm on a cul-de-sac, so it's okay. But I'm still rolling down the cul-de-sac with this huge amp, and oh, my back, frankly, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, my Damen and mein Herren, I have never ever owned any huge amps. I like small combo amps, as you know, and for recording, I usually go, recording bass, I do DI, either through a DI box or somehow directly in, or as I've told you recently, I bought the Mark V bass preamp, which is just that's the way to go. It's not cheap. They're about $700, but it does the ticket, and I can carry that thing around no problem. This thing, this Trace Elliot, this is like if you're going to be playing Wembley Stadium kind of thing. But anyway, let's go downstairs to the Upstairs to the Right studio where I've got it at, because I'm not bringing it upstairs, and and take a look at it and see if we can diagnose exactly what's wrong with this thing. Okay, so here we have my neighbor's Trace Elliot 715. Now the 715 is a 200 watt bass combo. It's got a 15-inch Celestion speaker in it, a high frequency tweeter, 7-band EQ, MOSFET technology, basically the works. It's got a built-in compression in it, effects loop. It has a dedicated line out for recording that's both balanced and 1/4 inch. 2 inputs, passive and active. So it covers a lot of bases. So when this was released by Trace Elliot, which is a well-known British company, producer of amplifiers from the 80s, I remember hearing about Trace Elliot. This was going to be their premier flagship model. So my neighbor gave me this amp, and in hopes that I could figure out exactly why, when he turns it on, that there is a kind of a feedback hum of some sort. I came to understand. So yeah, let's turn it on, and let's see. I've got it plugged in. So first thing off, I hate the fact that this has this LED lit front panel, because whenever you start to introduce unnecessary things, in my opinion, like that into any kind of a piece of equipment, especially an amp, you're going to run into all kinds of trouble later on, because it's just one more thing that could really go south on you. I'm not saying that's the reason why he was getting this hum, but certainly I just don't see it as being necessary. So I'm going to let it run here for a few seconds. I can hear the internal fan, so it has a fan in it. I don't hear any kind of hum. Now, my neighbor who asked me to take a look at this, I don't think he's a pro musician. So I'm looking over here and I see you have the passive and the active inputs. I'm starting to think that maybe he was plugging into the wrong input. He's putting it in the wrong hole, so to speak. I think that might be one of the reasons. I'm not hearing anything here. Now, however, upon a little bit of research on this amp, I did discover that that was one of the big problems with this. When they came out with this back in 2009 or so, the majority of them were getting returned. And why were they getting returned? They were getting returned because there was a hum coming from this, or after a few minutes, it would completely cut out, or both. So it was completely a factory manufacturer issue with this amp, so much so that they started blowing them out, putting them on sale, which is funny because when I asked my neighbor about this amp, he said, oh yeah, I got a great deal on it. I got it for 3,000 Singapore dollars. So I think the exchange rate on 3,000 Singapore dollars is works 10 years ago, works out to about 2,500 US dollars today. I looked this amp up on Reverb to see how much they're currently going for, and the only one that I could find that had gone for sale was for $375. So, so he would get, less than around a 10% return on his investment on this, because of the fact that this particular 715 developed a bad rap about it because of the buzz, because of other issues of cutting out. I just think that when you start introducing this kind of chaos into a combo amp, sure, you can have an EQ, whatever, but completely unnecessary in my opinion, because you can have an external, if you got an effects loop over here, then you can introduce your own EQ, a pedal EQ into it. That's not necessary. A built-in dual band compression, so you can set the compression level over here. Again, not really something that I see necessary. This is pretty cool over here, however, to have a dedicated line out for recording, balanced DI, and a 1/4 inch. So, and pre-EQ switch here, post-EQ switch. Again, you didn't need the EQ, so that's just another place where this thing can go wrong. And as it turns out, that's exactly what happened. So they were blowing these out. He said to me, yeah, I got a great deal on it. And after a little research, I know why. Because these had a really, really bad rap to them. And again, you can see why I talk about doing your research before you buy anything. Because you really want to know what's going on out there. You go into a dealer, there's a lot of great dealers out there, a lot of honest guys. I've been fortunate I've run into, but I've also run into some shady guys too who are just going to try to move product. And a lot of guys knew that these were bad. I think musician's friend or some precursor to that company, they were getting such bad feedback on these that they started deleting the comments in the customer feedback because everybody was saying, hey, I'm getting this feedback on this thing is cutting off on me, a whole bunch of things. Yeah, we've had this on for a few minutes and I'm not hearing anything. I'm not hearing anything at all. I hear the cooling fan running. It hasn't cut off on me. It's not getting hot at all. Let's plug in the bass guitar and let's see. Let's plug it in and see if that makes a big difference. So as I was saying, this amp has two inputs: a passive input and an active input. It says 150 watt bass combo on here. The description labels it as a 200. Maybe they had a 200. Yeah, I mean, I can't tell from the front bit, but anyway, that's what they say it is. So let's disengage the EQ, make sure that that's not on. Let's make sure the compressor is not on. Yeah. It seems to be fine. I don't know. I'm not hearing any hum. Again, other than the cooling fan. I'm not hearing any problems or issues with this at all. Now, he didn't give me his cable. I'm actually using my cable from one of my amps. I'm starting to think that maybe he was getting a grounding problem issue with this. Well, that's just feedback from the cable. So I'm starting to think that there's nothing wrong with this amp at all, to tell you the truth. I'm thinking maybe I need to see what cable he's using. I'm using a different power cable. He didn't give me the power cable, so he might have a grounding issue there. He might have an issue with whatever cable he's using. So I need to check that out, but this has been on for going on 10 minutes now, 15 minutes. I'm not hearing any problems. I'm not getting any buzz, any hum or anything else. So I don't think there's anything wrong with this one. I'm not saying that they all shipped out bad, because there are some reviews that say it's a great amp. But there was issues definitely with this model, with a lot of them. But for a 10-year-old bass cabinet, bass cabinet, I have to say that yeah, it's doing pretty good. Now let me see if I cut in the EQ. Anything. How about add a little compression to that? Wow, that puts a lot of punch in it. A little muddy. But again, compression on an amp like this is just, again, I just feel that when you start putting all this extra stuff in, especially when you have, it makes the effects loop kind of redundant in some ways. Because if you're going to have an effects send and return, and kudos on them that they put it on the front panel, it's a lot better than, for example, my Laney, where the effects loop is in the back, which makes kind of a pain in the ass. But kudos on them for putting it here in the front. But if you have an effects loop, having an EQ and a compressor really is unnecessary. And I think, yeah, that's just an unnecessary little bit of electronics that, again, could fail in this glowing panel thing. This, you know, I don't know if you can see that in this light, but actually, let's turn it off. Turn it on so you can see, yeah, it lights up a bit, kind of a glow in the dark kind of thing. But yeah, I'm not seeing anything wrong with this thing. For a 10-year-old bass combo, it's not bad. I've got this on 1, and it's you know it's sufficiently loud enough. I know that he doesn't do live gigs. He's not a professional musician, so I have no idea. I mean, I do, you know, I'm a recording, you know, a producer, and I've never had an amp this big before. It's cool that, like I said, that you've got this balance out, you know, for recording. You know, you can control the level. Oh, wait a minute. So if you turn the output all the way up, the line out, then yeah. Can you hear that? So yeah, there's a hum there. What if we turn the input? No, that's as quiet as a church mouse. So yeah, there I'm getting a hum when I'm using this line out, but if I turn that all the way off, this thing is silent. Yeah. So, okay, after taking a look at this, I'm going to have to give him the good news that I can't find anything wrong with it, so he needs to check and see if his cable that he's using, or if there's a problem with his bass guitar, or if there's a grounding problem with the power cable that he's using. But this amp seems to be pretty solid, especially for a 10, 11-year-old amp. The bad news is he got completely ripped off in terms of value for this thing, because the dealers at that time knew that this was a problematical bass combo. That's why they were blowing it out and why he got such a great deal on it. And now, like I said, this thing is worth about $350. So, you know, not a really good return on investment on these things. And, you know, I think I might actually do a separate show talking about a return of investment on your instruments. Like, this is a 1984 Fender Jazz bass that I got at a pawn shop for $100. These things are going for $1,000 now. If you know, if anything, these are actually, you know, and getting up there as it gets older. So a great return on investment on this thing. Terrible return on investment from my neighbor on this bass amp. However, if you're planning on keeping it, you're not planning on selling it, and you just want to enjoy using it, then, you know, whatever. But, you know, I wouldn't buy anything new. I loathe buy new things. Even my Vox and my Laney, I bought those secondhand, and then I modded them out. Yeah, most of my equipment is secondhand, and I really did a lot of research on them before I bought them. Okay, so there we have it. We've run through the amp. I couldn't find anything wrong with it. When you turn that output, the recording output, the DI out for recording, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, we heard we heard a hum to it, but I don't think that he's doing any kind of recording. So as a matter of fact, I know he's not. So as long as you keep that bad boy turned off, that thing is pretty quiet. I'm impressed. It has a really punchy sound to it. A little muddy, but that's something that you can clean up in post. But when you kick in that compressor, yeah, it's got that that punchy British bass sound. So it's not really my cup of tea in terms of bass sounds are concerned, but it is something that I like. If you're into it's an 80s kind of Duran Duran, John Taylor kind of bass sound to it, I suppose. It wouldn't surprise me if that's what he uses, Trace Elliot bass cabinets. But in any case, as we saw, we got two takeaways from this. First of all, you really have to research what it is you're buying when you buy it. Before you buy any piece of equipment, get online. I mean, even though this thing was 10, 11 years ago he bought this, there was such a functional thing as the internet, and there were people making comments because I read them myself. I pulled them up. A lot of the comments from 2009, 2010 talking about this particular bass combo amp. So it really behooves you to research what it is that you're buying. The reason he got such a great deal on it is because they were having issues with it. It was problematical. In his case, that hum that he was hearing, again, I think can be traced back to some problem other than the bass combo amp, so that's a good thing. So I'll have to run through that with him and see exactly what he's plugging into it and whatnot. The second takeaway that we can take from this is that, really have yourself, some strong guys if you're going to buy a Trace Elliot 715 combo amp to do live gigging with, because you're going to need two 6'4", 250-pound, guys to carry that sucker around. I can't see any practical way that any normal musician could even think about using that thing as a gigging amp. I'm sorry, but I just can't see it. That is an incredibly heavy piece of equipment with a lot of unnecessary bells and whistles on it. Which I think is why some of the other models that I was discussing with you were having issues, because there's so many points on that thing where something go wrong. Go wrong with the LED lighting, with the EQ, with the compressor, just a cadre of problems, I think, that they did, where you really just need, a good preamp. Anyway, you know what I'm trying to say. It's a lot of unnecessary bells and whistles on that particular model, I think, was its biggest downfall. So that's it for today's show. I hope you enjoyed it. Please don't forget to hit the like button. Like I said, by the end of this summer, I would like to get up to 200 subscribers to this channel. So if you're a first-time viewer of this channel, just take the time to subscribe. We've got a lot of great content on this thing in the past and coming up in the future. Something new every week. It's always changing. I try not to repeat myself too much unless I'm doing a series. In any case, hit that like button as well, because YouTube algorithms really respond to the likes. And you guys have yourself a great day. Take care of yourselves out there, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.